Do you ever come across some old like information you've kind of created or done something with and just think, wow, is this cringy or is it actually good? And I did this exact thing just the other day. I was looking through my LinkedIn profile and I noticed this old slide or slide deck sort of thing that I had from, it'd have to be close to 10 years ago. And I thought it'd be really good to go through it and actually see if any of it still makes sense or if it's like completely wrong and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get stuck into it and let's see if what I was thinking back then kind of holds up today. All right, let's get into it. All right, so this here is called Becoming a Better Developer. We've got here a short talk on becoming a better web developer, non-technical. These are various tips to assist you on your way to becoming a better web developer. Although there is no finish line, it is something to strive for all the time. Wow, yeah, this is very, very old by the looks. All right, so I've got here about me. So I live on the Gold Coast, well, just south of it. 9 years of experience, approximately, professional. My professional experience and non-professional experience, righto. We're going over some of the various frameworks and platforms and things that I'd been working in. So WordPress, CodeIgniter, Laravel, Drupal, a lot of PHP things there. Ruby on Rails, custom PHP CMSs, just PHP in general with the languages, Ruby, Node, shell scripts, basically whatever I need to get the job done. I like to build things. I guess I was talking here about Pixel Stack, which is my company, DevBase.io, which was one little like side project I had, and Email Setup Buddy, which is another little project I had as well. And also talking about my bodyboarding is something I love to do, my photography, which I don't think I still got that domain anymore. And I like to travel, and then going over Unix/Linux users, so primarily using a Linux kind of environment or Unix kind of environment. This is an interesting kind of about me. It's it's very reminiscent of the time where I was doing lots of stuff, and then back then I was doing like a heap of things. So I was at agencies, right? And with agencies, we basically took on a lot of different projects. Some we had kind of like at the time, depending on where I was, we had very much like kind of consistent environments, consistent frameworks. But I was also freelancing and things like that. So I had either legacy clients with like existing projects. I don't want to say legacy is probably a bad idea, or bad way to phrase it. But had a lot of these different platforms I had to work with. So it's kind of reminiscent of, what things were like back then versus working at a larger company where you've basically got everything kind of standardized to an extent on, what you should or could be using. So yeah, interesting view there. Next up, basics. So some of these basics here. So working with others, pairing. Now, this one I still 100% agree with. Pairing with people, whether it's for a short period of time or a fairly long period of time, although I think a handful of hours at a time is probably the absolute most, tremendously rewarding. Even if you are, say, two people on the same level, or if you're working with someone higher than you or lower than you, regardless, you're going to see some growth from that, or you're going to learn things, and so is the other person. Like, it's tremendously rewarding and useful, and it's beneficial to everyone. So I recommend pairing as much as you can. Of course, it doesn't mean like pair all the time. I know there's some companies that do that. Great, it might work for them, but for most people that I've found, including myself, I can't pair like all day, every day. But it's definitely good to jump on things. And to extending that, my thoughts now is like mobbing. I think it's great sometimes when you want to work on a problem, get a few people in the room. Now, that's not always the case. Generally, 2 people is the, I think, the optimum. But sometimes actually mobbing on something, having multiple people, more than 2, is really, really good. Listening to podcasts, and I think this has become even more true today. Like, podcasts still seem to be very, very popular and a thing to go to, and I still get a lot of value from them. Experimentation, yes, like always experiment, always be trying things out, keeping on top of things. Using tools. This one, I think, is not so much of oh yeah, you should be using some tools to get the job done these days, whereas back then, a lot of people didn't use tooling, at least from the circles that I was in. So that's around like using different tools to help you do your job in terms of like automations, scripts, anything in the command line, different services that you have online, all those sort of like tools, right? those things are going to help you do your job better or improve your quality or whatever it might be. I think this is less controversial now, but back then that wasn't too much of a thing. People were like, what? You use a thing for that? You use a CLI for doing this? Like, it wasn't a thing, but now it seems to be pretty much the norm. Get to know your editor. Yeah, this one I strongly recommend. Now, if you are going to be like using something all the time, you really want to make sure you understand it. And your editor is something you, as a software engineer writing code, you're going to be doing that most of the day, right? Even if you're not productive the whole day, you can be productive for a small portion of the day, hopefully, as large as you can make it. But knowing your editor so it gets out of your way is still something that is very important. Like, it needs to be an extension of you. You don't need to be going through and like, how do I do this in the editor? How do I do that? No, you should have it as like everything is second nature. Now, I will say, big asterisks, like there's going to be stuff that you're going to change or you're going to improve or add, and that will take a little bit of time to work that out. But for the majority of your editor, you shouldn't be thinking. It should just be, if you're using a mouse, you know exactly where to go. If you're using the keyboard, you know your shortcuts, your commands, whatever it might be. That way you are spending less time thinking about how to run your editor and more about how to solve this problem with code or how to architect it or whatever it might be. Next thing, learn the command line. Yeah, back then I found not a lot of people were using the terminal, at least in my circles. And yeah, I think learning the command line is going to be super, super helpful. There's a ton of tools, again, using your tools, CLI tools in particular, going to make your life just so much easier. And just build stuff. This one is uber important, and I still think it's important today, is building things. I know there's a big trend at the moment, build in public, which is really good to see. I think it helps people with accountability and also like becomes a networking thing and all this kind of stuff, marketing, etc. But just building things, right? There's so much you can watch on YouTube or watch other people, listen to talks, read articles, etc. Actually doing the thing is what's going to end up helping you basically improve your craft over time. Now, this might be small increments, but again, small increments over time is going to give you all that value, right? So you think many small steps to get to where you need to be. Just building stuff is really going to help you with that. And then finally, look after yourself. And I think this is super important. I think we found this out over, when we had the periods over 2019, 2020, 2021, whatever it was, that period. I think this still rings very true. And, this is really something everyone should be doing. All right. Work with others. Oh, wow. I've gone in depth here with these slides. Let's see what I've got. Working together on the same project. Yeah. Review each other's code. Yeah. Look, this is the other thing too with pairing. If you're pairing on something, you end up resulting in a PR. Usually your PR is going to go through it a lot faster, whether the other person who was pairing with you is reviewing it or if someone else does, just because it's kind of like it's been sort of pre-validated to an extent. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be 100% and it's going to get 0 comments or whatever, but it's got less likely of a chance of basically having more pushback on the PR if something isn't quite right or isn't the way that you'd want to kind of go down, like that path. Trying to find the right terminology here, because there's like people who've got like, oh, this is how we do things versus like this is how a language does it. I'm trying to get past that. Anyway, I'm not explaining it very well, but basically you're putting everything up in a state where it's already been sort of vetted to an extent. Now, mileage may vary. It really, really depends on who you're pairing with and what problems you're focusing on and all that kind of stuff. But generally, this comes down to something I've talked about in the past, is around like communicating early, communicating often, putting up draft PRs, things like that. So you get the feedback early, so that way when you're actually getting to the main proper review, you're not kind of just going like, oh, it's done, and you've wasted all this time. So it's always good to get that feedback as early and as often as possible. Do it in remote or in person. We've got, especially now, we've got amazing tools for actually like sharing remotely, whether you're actually just sharing your editor or sharing your screen or whatever, that kind of stuff. And yeah, as I said earlier, skill set, experience, it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that you're getting together and working with someone. Next thing, listen to podcasts. Yeah, easiest way to get a lot of information. It's something you can do during your commute. You can do it while you're working. You can do it while you're going for a jog or run, whatever. It's an easy way to absorb information. Of course, if you're a visual learner, it might be a little bit harder, but there's still going to be things that are going to sink in, which is really good. And yeah, there's tons of podcasts out there. You can listen to them weekly, daily, monthly, whatever. Just listening to podcasts is really going to help you. I still agree with that. Experimentation, so trying something new at least once a week. I don't know about once a week, but often, right? Like, once a week might be a bit too ambitious for some people. Of course, this is all general. It's very generalized, but like the idea is to actually be learning something. So weekly, I probably don't agree with that. Going outside your comfort zone, if you don't know, outside your comfort zone, you don't want to go too far, but a certain point past your comfort zone, that's where your growth is. It's called the growth zone. Try it on a real project. Yeah, if you've got the ability to do so and it's safe, then yeah, sure, go for it. Otherwise, do it on a side project or even just do it on like a fake project. Real projects, might differ. Like when I was in the agency world, there was stuff that if we were fairly comfortable with, we could experiment trying it on a project, and if we knew that if it didn't work, we could pull it out. But ideally, most of that stuff had still been kind of pre-vetted and made sure that it's okay. Next thing, using tools. Wow, okay, this is a bit of a blast from the past. Git, Bower, Grunt, Gulp, Drush. So Drush is a CLI tool for Drupal. It was. I'm not too sure the state of it now. Gulp, Grunt were like, these were like precursors to Webpack. And I actually quite like Grunt and Gulp. They were pretty nice. Gulp especially had a much nicer syntax. And when Webpack first came out, it was like really, really pain to configure. And Gulp's was still quite nice. But anyway, Bower was also similar. It was to do with like components and third-party libraries and that kind of stuff, managing that. It's pretty cool. We got like CodeKit, pre-pro. So this is all around CSS preprocessors. Then you got Sass, Less, Stylus. Yeah, awesome. They really made a big difference to the work that I was doing at the time. All that kind of stuff. Right now you got like, if you look in the CLI, and there's lazy Git for Git, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? It's pretty cool. Getting to know your editor, yeah. As I said, like, doesn't matter what you're using. If it's an IDE or a text editor, right? Doesn't matter. Whatever you're using to write your code, just get to know it, right? Learn it inside out. And don't be scared to try a different editor. And you're probably going to change. If you're just starting out in your career, you're probably going to change editors pretty often. So, or at least you should try others, because you don't know what's going to work for you. Just because, I can say, Vim is amazing, you should use Vim, that's the only thing. Other people might say, you should use, WebStorm or RubyMine or JetBrains or some product, whatever, or VS Code. I've got a meeting soon. So just using stuff, like play around and see what works for you. Just because it works for someone or some major YouTuber or personality or whatever, find what works for you, and don't be scared to change things around. Like, thinking about my career, I've used like just basic like text editors. I've used like good old Dreamweaver. I've used Front Page back in the day, back at high school. I've used Espresso was a one. I used Coda, Atom, Sublime, VS Code, Vim. Play around with Emacs through Spacemacs. There's heaps. I've played around with heaps. I keep going back to Vim whenever I try anything else since I've started Vim about 10 years ago, but use something, right? Like, just try them out. I'm saying here Vim is awesome but not for new devs. I don't agree with that anymore. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think Vim is very approachable now, especially with things like Lazy Vim, I think it's called. It's pretty awesome. Try editors, basically. Learn the command line, start with one command. It's not too scary if you haven't done it. One command, put it into practice, use it. Eventually you'll build up knowledge around these tools, these commands that you're using, and it's just going to make your life so much better. Just at building stuff. And learn by doing. Write good README documents. Please, one of the biggest pieces of advice I could probably ever give, it's one of these like top 10, top whatevers, like really, really high, super duper importance. I cannot stress this enough. Writing a good README. It's not just for other people, it's for you, because you're going to end up picking up some project, especially with a side project. You're going to work on that and be like, oh, cool, I'll do all this stuff with it. Then you stop and you come back like 6-12 months later and you're going to be like, how do I run this thing again? What do I do? Do I have start scripts? Do I have like install script? What's going on? Like, what do I need? What dependencies? All this kind of stuff. READMEs will solve all your problems. Oh my gosh, so many times where I've ended up not running a README, I've been really skimped on the README. Headaches. Write a good README. It'll pay dividends. Anyway, finding a problem and tackling it, yeah, by yourself with a friend or even a stranger, yeah. Like, it's always good to just build things, right? And don't be scared to fail. This is a really important point, is failing or not achieving the outcome that you want is all part of the journey, right? Don't think about projects and absolutes as being like, it's either absolute no point in starting it because there's no way you can do it, or like it's huge success and now I can quit my job and do this thing, or it's super popular, whatever. Like, forget that. It's about going from an idea and taking it to whatever iteration it is and just continuing that. Like, it's all about that journey, and expect failures, expect things to go wrong, expect to make the wrong decisions, and that's totally okay. The main thing is actually getting in the habit of building these things and doing these things. You're going to have tremendous growth just from that. Don't be stupid, look after yourself. Oh yeah, I could use some of this lately. I've been pretty bad with it lately. Take micro breaks. Again, this is sort of following the Pomodoro technique. I was massively into this back then, like short 5-10 minute breaks. This is really important because your brain can only function on one thing for a certain amount of time before it starts to shut down. And why the Pomodoro technique works so well, it's like having like these like blocks of segments, and in between each block you have a small break, and after a certain number of blocks you have a longer break, is that it actually allows your brain to kind of like rest, and you can essentially have a day where you feel better by the end, and you'll actually be more productive even with the breaks. I didn't do any scientific discovery. This is stuff that I've read and has been apparently studied and blah, blah, blah. It worked tremendously well for me as an IC. Bit harder as a manager. I don't have as much flexibility, but in general, like, taking those breaks is uber important. And if you can, get outside, get some fresh air, get some sun, drink some water, make a big difference. Yeah, taking a holiday every year, also, you got to refresh yourself. Stand up, sitting's bad for your heart. Exercise, like, it's been proven too, like exercise, like just moving is actually going to help your brain function. So if you're ever stuck on something, like as I said, getting outside, going for a walk, having some water, all that kind of stuff's going to help you, right? The sun is your friend. Yeah, in small doses, you want to get sunburnt. Eat well, get some good sleep. Sleep's uber important as well. And actually do things with with people in real life. That one is even more important today because we're in this remote first world essentially. I know a lot of places are going back to the office to an extent, but generally a lot of people, especially in software, are remote, and it's really good to actually see people, communicate, talk to people, even if it's people you don't know. Go hang out in a cafe, something like that. All right, what do we got? In summary, yeah, teach and learn. So pairing it actually kind of forces you to sort of teach at times. You got to explain things to people, and that is going to help you really grow. The biggest growth I ever saw was from teaching others, because it allowed me to understand what I didn't know. It also helped me understand from a different perspective, and also just allowed me to cement that knowledge in a bit more as well. Keep up to date. This is again through podcasts and just building things. It's sort of easy as long as you put the effort in. Going outside your comfort zone, so going to that growth zone, really, yep, I agree with that. Try new things. Yes, you should, of course, in moderation. You don't want to be trying new things all the time because you won't have time to really dive deep in the things that you really know. Yeah, know your tools. That's super important. Learn the command line. Look after yourself and just build things. Just do that. Yep. Yeah. And then finally, don't be scared to ask questions, all right? The only stupid question is the one that's not asked. I still believe in this today. I still say this to people today. Definitely ask questions, right? This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. If anyone ever kind of like thinks less of you for asking questions, even if it's the same one that you ask again and again, generally not good people to take advice from, right? Anyone who sees that you're trying to seek some clarity or understand something, anyone who's worth their salt is going to essentially be like, oh, they're really interested. They're really trying to actually learn and understand this thing. So they're going to give you the time. So all great leaders or anyone who's really good at what they do will give the time, regardless of you've asked this the third, fourth time. They'll help you out. And maybe they'll also notice a pattern, be like, hey, let's maybe do something a bit different so we can kind of work out why you might not be quite grasping this thing. So yeah, anyway, I have a meeting to go to now that lunch is just about over, but that was interesting. That was a good blast from the past. I'm pretty keen to see if there's any other things I can dig up from ages ago, and maybe I'll review some more of those. Anyway, I'd love to know, do you have any like old talks or any slides or anything that you've done in the past and had a review and thought, gee, wow, look at that. That's a bit of a blast from the past, or maybe the stuff you just completely changed your mind on. Keen to hear it. So leave a comment in the comment section below on that. Catch you in the next one. I'm out of here. Bye.